welcome. Hey, everybody. This is the Leaders Lounge. I am Dawn Marie Morris. Welcome to another fine day. And here in Nashville, it's absolutely beautiful today. And we got a great show. I'm going to jump right into it as soon as I let you know about a few things. We always have to do our housekeeping. First of all, the Leaders Lounge is brought to you through the World Class Training Institute, which is my organization that is designed to maximize an organization's greatest resource, which is human capital. And we do that through the delivery of leadership and professional development training programs. So anything to help your organization be its absolute best is in our wheelhouse, including emotional intelligence, delegation, personality assessments, conflict resolution, systems thinking, and more. Team Sync, which is a great program that we're doing for executive or C-level leaders so that they can align their teams around their vision and mission and make sure that they understand the personalities and the idiosyncrasies of their team members, because we often think that a resume will automatically equate to being able to be successful on the job, which, as today's show is going to really highlight, that is not the case. The people part is the most important part. And I say that because you can always gain new skills, you can gain greater business acumen, but if you don't handle the people part well, it is going to not bode well for you typically in an organization, especially as you go higher and higher up the ladder. I was trained in situational leadership several years ago, and situational leadership really starts with that premise that when someone goes from being an individual contributor to a leader of people, they go from having the need of technical skills as their primary competency to now going into having human skills as their primary competency. And if they have not done the work to develop their human skills capacity, it becomes challenging for people who go into leadership. And then as you go from being a middle level or mid to high level leader to being a senior leader, you must then work on also developing your strategic skills. And if you don't do that well, then it won't serve you well when you go into C-level positions. So technical, human, strategic skills, all necessary as you are climbing the ladder corporately or in other arenas. You got to have these skills. So the World Class Training Institute definitely helps you in the development of those areas. The other thing, of course, we want to promote our latest book, which is Unpacking Agape, the 7 Languages of Intentional Leadership. And you can go and grab that right now while we're talking at worldclasstraining.net/agape. That's worldclasstraining.net/agape. And the Unpacking Agape is about really understanding the role of being a servant leader. And again, going from an individual contributor to a leader of people, you really have got to hone in on the idea that you are a servant of your team. So what does that look like? And the reason that we say languages instead of another word is because the best way that language shows up is by behavior. So the 7 languages of intentional leadership are actually 7 behaviors that a leader demonstrates to show that they are leading in an agape or selfless, sacrificial care and concern way. Okay? So please make sure to pick that up at worldclasstraining.net/agape. And I feel like I want to show that. So hold on one second. Hold on. Thank you for your patience. We're in a new location, but I do want to make sure that we go ahead and at least show the book for a moment so everybody knows when they go and they look for it, they can actually see exactly what it is. Unpacking Agape, the 7 Languages of Intentional Leadership. So I'm going to just see if I can put that up there right quick. Maybe not. Okay. We won't hold up the show for that. We'll show it again next time. Okay. So here you go. Now let's talk about today. So today we are really delving into an area that's become one of my babies, so to speak, and that is superintendents. As I do the work of the World Class Training Institute, one of our industries that we focus on is education. And of course, we have to work a lot with superintendents in order to help them as they are attempting to lead the district and attempting to lead their administrative staffs, all of these things. And I am finding that the role of the superintendent looks a lot different than what I thought it looked like when I was growing up, because we had the same superintendent. I grew up in Warrensville Heights School District in Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. And we had the same superintendent, I believe, the whole time from K to 12. And I never left that school district while I was in school from, kindergarten through 12th grade. I stayed in the same school district, and I do not remember our superintendent changing at all. But what I'm seeing now is superintendents are coming and going. And I just left a superintendent's conference in New Orleans. And in one of the concurrent sessions, the person who was leading it said that the average time for a superintendent to stay is 3.5 years. And in the minority sector, it's about 18 months. Yes, I said 18 months, a year and a half. And particularly because I'm in Nashville and I've worked closely with the Memphis Shelby County schools. We haven't done actual work for them, but we've been in conversations with them. I've had to really follow what happened in Memphis. And for those people who don't know, I'll go ahead and show. So Dr. Marie Fagans, and I did a show on this one as well, was hired and was only on the job for 8 months. And she was fired with allegations of professional misconduct. And some of the things surrounding her being terminated were that there was a grant that she didn't secure in time, was one of the things that they said. And then they levied 2 other concerns against her. One of them was about a check that came through the district, and she signed off on the check, or the check was deposited without board approval, and a check over a certain amount should not get deposited without board approval. And so Dr. Marie Fagans, although through the community actually seemed to really love her, and the school, there were some school teachers who came out in full support of her. The school district, the board members voted to oust her after just 8 months in the role, after they had, from my understanding, been on a search for a superintendent for about 2 years. So that's one example. There is another example that I'm going to share with you all that's kind of close and near and dear to me. This person actually was there a little longer. However, in Chicago, Dr. Pedro Martinez, CEO of Chicago Public Schools, he actually stayed in his role 4 years, but then he was fired without cause. And the only thing that I have seen is that he was terminated because he refused to pursue a loan that the mayor wanted him to pursue. And I'm not sure if it was about getting different schools set up or not, but there was some high interest loan that the mayor wanted him to pursue. He refused to do it. The board eventually voted to fire him without cause after 4 years in his role. So those two are relatively close to me. One, because I used to live in Chicago. So even though I'm no longer there, of course, I follow what goes on there because it's always going to remain near and dear to my heart. Again, Memphis, Shelby County schools, I actually even got to not really personally know Dr. Fagans, but from a business standpoint, I got to see her, have like small conversations with her. And so, yes, from my vantage point, I'm like thinking everything's going great. And then I had just seen her the day that it was announced that they were going to have a board meeting for her firing. So I got home, I checked my phone, and I see this pop up, and I'm like, this has to be a mistake. It has to be old. But no, it was that they were pursuing terminating her, and ultimately that's what happened. A couple of others that I just researched just to kind of set the stage here, not people that I know personally, but again, just to kind of show you all the length of time that these superintendents are in office. This particular person, Dr. Lamont Jackson in San Diego, was fired after just 2 years in a row, accused of inappropriate conduct. And then the last person I want to share with you all is this person his name is Pedro Arredondo of Grand Prairie ISD. He was fired after just 2 months in the role. That's right. I said just 2 months in the role. And so the question becomes, boards do a lot of research. A lot of them even send out to an outside agency to help find people for these roles. Superintendents salaries are not cheap, right? And so when you're bringing them in, you definitely should have done your research. You should do background checks. You should find out how are these leaders actually behaving in a work environment before you even give them the job. So when they're given their role, you're not looking at it and thinking, okay, well, this particular superintendent is going to be gone in a few months because we've done, hopefully, our due diligence in bringing them to their role. So what ends up happening to have these superintendents end up no longer being in their role? Well, I had to do some deep digging on my end to really start thinking about, okay, what that what seems to be the what do you call it, the common denominator that is creating this atmosphere where superintendents, top level person in the district, is brought in, but they are not able to stay in their role. So as someone who's been in leadership for years, I began to really think about, well, what does it take to really lead people? And when you're thinking about superintendents and the path that they take, what is that part that is stopping them from really being successful when they get in their positions? So when you think about, and I had, again, the opportunity in New Orleans to be at the superintendent's conference, and I got to chat with a number of superintendents, two in particular who actually have been in their role for a pretty long time. One gentleman, his name was Mark Medell out of Baltimore, and another person was out of Denver, and he's the superintendent there. And I asked the question during one of the concurrent sessions, well, it seems like superintendents are not necessarily getting nixed for not knowing how to do the work. It's that there is a disconnect between the superintendent and the board. And so how do you mitigate that? And how do superintendents who come into the role do the work that they need to do to build the right relationship? So one, Mr. Medell said, well, he said, you have a few months to let the board members know how to treat you. That was his thought. He said, and he left it like there. And they said it was a mic drop moment, and they kept it moving. And then later I spoke to the superintendent in Denver, and he said he would have answered that a little differently, but he did agree that superintendents have to have good relationships with the board presidents. If they don't have good relationships with the board presidents, who can in some cases take some of the heat off of them, meaning the superintendents, then it's going to be challenging for them to handle when difficult situations arise. And so, what I would like to share a little bit and hopefully provide some help for superintendents is to really help them understand the difference, because again, we're talking about as you go up the ladder, you're going from technical skills to human skills to strategic skills. And when you're at that superintendent's level, you're at the C level. So you need to be both human and strategic in your dealings in order to be successful. Because again, I'm just going to walk through looking at what happened with each of these superintendents who I'm highlighting. Dr. Fagan's professional misconduct. The two that I just highlighted were things related to strategy. One, it's a check that was deposited that shouldn't have been deposited. The other was something related to a grant where the grant funds were not procured in the right period of time. As a leader, as a C-level leader, this is something that you have to have your eye on. But when you're in the classroom, that's not something that's in your purview. So you have to up your business acumen, right, in order to be successful in your role as a superintendent. And going back to Dr. Fagan's, I think the reason that the community and the teachers were so behind her is because she did demonstrate a high level of expertise as it related to the tools that were needed to help students improve their reading scores, to build community in the schools. She was out in the schools on a regular basis. She even did superintendent teacher days. So she would go in and teach, which are nice things. But again, when you're at this C level, your role is not the same. So like I tell individual contributors, you are no longer doing the work. You're there to inspire, motivate, plan, strategize so that the people can do the work. And so while it was nice and it was great from a standpoint of showing connection with those people in the schools, it did not do the job where it needed to do the job, which was in the strategy and the people part of her key stakeholders, which were her board members. So superintendents have to understand that your key stakeholders, yes, everybody in the district becomes a stakeholder, but your key stakeholders become those board members and your immediate administrative team. That team has got to be on lock. If not, it is going to create problems. It's just like if we go into a corporation and we're making friends with all of our team members or people on other teams, but we're not actually having the conversations with our boss to find out what does our boss need? What can I do to let my boss know that my work is value added? Then I'm still missing the mark. So that's one thing that I would say. As superintendents are moving up the ring, they have to start adjusting the type of work that matters, adjusting to the type of work that matters. And as she became superintendent, the type of work that really mattered was not necessarily taking over as a teacher for a day, but it was rather making sure that the business acumen pieces were in place so that the district was running and flowing smoothly. That's one thing. The second thing that I want to talk about is this. So we had a couple of people who had, so this person, Mr. Jackson, inappropriate conduct 2 years in a row. So it was something related to how he was handling district employees. So this is the thing. As you are moving up the ladder, as you are thinking about moving into a superintendent's role, you have to, again, keep your eye on human skills and strategic skills, right? So your human skills capacity has to be wide, which means that you have to know how to talk well to people at all levels of the organization. And you have to have a high degree of emotional intelligence. And I would even argue that board members or school boards, before they hire, as a part of their search, and of course the World Class Training Institute can help with that, we don't necessarily recommend it as this is the tool to say yay or nay, but maybe right when you make that hire, or before you kind of dwindle down, do some research on the emotional intelligence of the person who you're bringing in as a superintendent, or purporting to bring in, or have on deck, if that's an easier term to kind of digest, as the next superintendent, so that how is this person possibly going to handle moments of discord, moments of distress, moments of challenge from other people. Because again, a lot of research is done to bring in superintendents, so you don't want to be getting rid of superintendents, hopefully, after just 730 days in a job. And the best way to do that is to know that not only can they handle people who are under them, but can they handle their peers, and can they handle people who perhaps may challenge them in a way that people in the classroom or in the schools may not. Very, very important. So the second thing that I would offer to superintendents is, yes, number one, pay attention to who your key stakeholders are, and understand that the higher up you go, the makeup of your key stakeholder is going to change. Number two, and this is for board members and even superintendents, as you're thinking about taking on the role, start really considering, what is your personality like? What drives you? We do the DISC assessment, which really helps you understand ways that people can communicate with you and ways that people should not communicate with you. What is your social awareness, self-awareness, ability to self-regulate, ability to socially regulate? And where are your areas of strength and opportunity as it relates to that? Because the more you are aware of where you stand in the components of emotional intelligence, the more you're going to be able to work on those areas so that you can ultimately be successful. Because it is a different game when you go from being even a principal to now becoming a superintendent, because you report to a board, and the board, interestingly, they may have a lot of deep roots in the community. They may have some acumen in a business sector, but most of them have not actually worked in a school. So their purview of what's right is going to be different. And that's why, as new superintendents, it is uber critical for you to form good relationships with the president and the other board members. Now, how do you do that? Because in this world where you're running and you have a calendar that's absolutely full from day one, what do you do to ensure that you and the board members are staying in alignment? Well, it's one word: communication. And it's not communication just in preparation for the next board meeting. It's regular communication to make sure that you are staying in alignment with what you think and they think is best for the district. Now, there are certain rules around the conversations that superintendents and board members can have, and you must make sure that you align yourself appropriately with those conversations, because if you don't do that, you can get into some legal challenges. So I'm not saying that you have conversations that are not in alignment with the policies and the procedures of the board, the district, the state, however, whatever those rules are. But you do, to the best of your ability, want to be transparent, and you want to be clear, and you want to not have any semblances of impropriety in your dealings. That way, you have a better chance of um, surviving, frankly, because that's what it's about. And the last thing that I'm even going to say, as I'm thinking through this and trying to really help our superintendents to be more successful, the other thing that I have found is that superintendents who are um, successful, I'm going to talk about what I see in Metro Nashville public schools. The superintendent there doesn't try to carry all the weight. When you go to the board meetings, superintendent, or she's called the director of schools, uh, Dr. Adrian Battle, when questions come, she doesn't try to answer all of them. She exercises the knowledge base of her cabinet. And that way, they can also shoulder some of the weight and some of the responsibility of the position, because she understands that even though she's the director of school, she's not the one who's doing all of the work. And I will say that when I saw Dr. Fagans and she was going through the challenge with the check, she wouldn't mention exactly who didn't, who signed off on the check, or how that check got past her desk. She didn't go into detail because she was trying to protect that person. But it might have been better if she had brought it forth, because then you are being fully transparent. She would have been seen as fully transparent. Not sure if that was the reason that it was seen as a negative and one of the reasons for her firing or not. I know that it was brought up that the check was deposited and it did not have board approval. But again, if she had been more transparent in the board meetings when this came up, that perhaps could have looked different. So you have to make sure that you don't, as a superintendent, try to shoulder more of the responsibility than you need to, because they understand that even though, yes, you are the head, you are the top, you are the one who's ultimately responsible for the district, they understand also that you have a team. And then as a superintendent, hold your team accountable. If they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you got to make some tough decisions. And you need to make those decisions quickly, and you need to make those decisions with thought on how you best support the stakeholders, key stakeholders, and other stakeholders of the district. So I hope these things helped. Again, my top 3 for how superintendents can really start honing in and being more successful, where they are not in and out superintendents. I'm calling them microwave superintendents. Is number 1, you have got to stay in contact with your key stakeholders, and you've got to show a level of transparency. Number 2, do the assessments. Recognize as you're going from the classroom to administrative to being superintendents, you are now shifting your skill set from technical to human skills to strategic skills, and you've got to align your acumen accordingly. You cannot stay stuck in everything that made you a great teacher and think that everything that made you a great teacher is going to be everything that's going to make you a great superintendent, because it is going to be a mismatch. It's going to be a mismatch because you're looking at the district from 2 totally different levels. And then the third thing is you have to understand that community is great. The schools are great. The board is king. So you want to make sure that your board and you stay in constant good communication. Constant good communication so that you can stay successful. So these are just a few tips. And again, for you all, as you become superintendents, you want to keep your administrative team in alignment. We do a program called Team Sync, and it's specifically for those C-level leaders who are new to the role or new to a district or organization, and you want to align your teams around your vision, your mission, the systems thinking, finding out what their personalities are like and how they handle conflict. Reach out to us, and we can schedule time to have those conversations so that we can do that training for you, because this is absolutely, it's absolutely necessary. So it's at worldclasstraining.net, and then you go up to the top and look up executive training, and you will see Team Sync. Okay, or you can just go to the bottom and fill out the form and then schedule time with me, and I'd be happy to talk to you all about it. All right, such great information. I hope this was helpful for you all. Remember, again, our book, Unpacking Agape, the 7 Languages of Intentional Leadership. You can pick that up at worldclasstraining.net/agape. Some people just love to go to Amazon too. It is on Amazon. You can get it there as well. Pick it up though. If you pick it up on my website, I do autograph it for you. So that's an added bonus, and I put it in a nice blue package. So please go pick that up. I look forward to the next time that I see you. And remember always that when you are better, here at the World Class Training Institute, we are absolutely better. Take care.